Alright, so let's do this floor texture. This is really nice. It looks beautiful. You've got this variation. See this variation? This is not a sharp edge. So we need to put that in there. You can see the edges of the floor tiles quite well. You've got a lot of reflection going on there. You can see this wall very well and this wall. But you can't even, there's so much reflection going on that it's hard to see what the floor actually looks like. So we're just going to grab something similar to it and we're going to make it look like this. If you go to textures.com, let's click on floors. And you'll have this category down here. Just click on regular. And I want to use this one here. This is small, but this is seamless. As opposed to this one, which is the original, which is not seamless. We'd have to then make that seamless. We may as well just go with this. I know it's only 1024 by 1024, but feel free to, get some premium credits there and download, buy and download. But for now, this will work for us. So this image looks like this. We're going to edit this slightly. Probably have something like this. And I made a displacement. I did some tests with this earlier. I made a displacement look something like that. And I'm just going to open this with Photoshop. And let's put this on the floor. And just press Alt-W, come out of that view. Press M to bring up the material editor. I'm going to come here onto the materials, V-Ray, get a V-Ray material, and assign this to the floor. And then what I want to do is, I'm just going to use this for now, and stick that straight into the diffuse. And make this visible. And I'm going to use real world scale. And the reason this doesn't change in the viewport here, you can still see it the same when I turn this on and off, is because tiling set to 1 and real world scale set to 1, that means 1 unit. 1 millimeter is set to 1 unit, and this is set to 1 unit, so it's the same measurement. But if I do 2 millimeters and turn it off, then that's half of one of these measurements. So it goes kind of the opposite way. This is like the opposite to using tiling here. So we're going to put the size here, and we're going to work out this size based on the photo, based on our reference. The tiles are like this big. So I'd say they're only about 20 across and maybe 30 maximum in length. So if we look at this, that would be 20, 40, 60, 80 across, and then 30, 60, 90, 120. So it's probably not going to work out exactly like that, but 80, 120, and then put on a UVW map, and then leave it on planar, set it to real world scale. Alright. Let's press F3. There we go. So that's what we're looking at. That's how it is set right now. So that's about right. Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 across. And here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 across. So, I can make it a little bit larger. And I kind of want to. And I want that length to be a little bit longer. So let's change it to 1400. Let's make that 1000. And let's try this at 1600. Alright. I might need to bring this back down again, but it just gives us a starting place, a reference to go from. Now, there's a lot of variation in these tiles, and you can easily see what's happening. That is mirrored here, and that's here, and so on and so forth. So we're going to adjust this in Photoshop. If I come here, these are quite bitty. These have a lot of bits in them. And if you look here, it looks kind of smooth. So we can just do Control J and then try surface blur, filter, blur, surface blur. Alright, this is pretty good. Yep, I like that. We can just brighten that a bit. I think this is too much. So I'm just going to bring this opacity down to like 50%. Okay, and then save it. Select JPEG. Alright. Now we need a displacement. So if I do Control J on these and then bring this one up to 100 and then bring this up high, that can be my displacement, and that looks like it'll work pretty nicely. Save as. And I'm going to call this, I've got displace here already, I was working on this before, and then I was like, hey, let's make this a tutorial. So displace, new, we'll call it. Alright, so let's just double click, shift and drag that over, and then we'll click on here, and we want new, sorry, this is to replace this one, and then, oops, just drag this guy down, double click, and this one we want displace new, and what we're going to do is just chuck that into displacement for now, and set the displacement amount to like 5, so that should be fine. Okay, and then this needs to be super reflective, so I'm going to use my I often like being lazy, so we're going to go maps. Let's go concrete, we want stone, we're only going to concrete. Something like that looks really nice. So open that. Let's just make sure this is seamless. Open it in Photoshop and go filter, other, offset. Set this to 0, 0, and just try a small amount and larger. Well, you can see the seam down here, so it's not seamless, but it's hard to see that seam. So we'll come over, let's do 2000. Yeah, okay. Let's do 25. Alright, and I'm just going to press J again, my favorite tool it seems. I'm going to click up here, I'm going to press Shift and click down here, and it'll just blend that edge together pretty nicely. Some areas won't look so good, like here, and you just come along and touch them up a bit afterwards. Alright, so we're going to do this filter, other, offset, minus 2500, back where it was. Filter, other, offset, just zero that down, out, and then down 1000. And we're going to come down 1300. And you can clearly see this line here, so we're going to do the same again. Over there, hold shift, click over here, let it work its magic. I mean, don't get me wrong, feel free to stamp if you like, if that's your thing. But I find this is quick. And I'm going to put this back where it was. And I'm actually going to do something I very rarely do, and I normally say not to do, and I'm just going to overwrite the one that was there before. And 10's good. And I normally say not to do it because then you end up with, you've overridden it, so you can't ever get back the original there, and it degrades each time you overwrite it, but it's fine, because, you know, if I use this, this is good enough. If I'm going to use this in another project, which I very well may do, I'm happy to have it seamless, and I don't think I need that original one. Like, I didn't lose a lot of detail. Okay, so I'm going to take this, and let's put this in diffuse just so we can see what we're doing. Use this real world scale. I mean, I can put it in another one and just make it visible, but I'm happy to do it this way as well. So I'm going to say width 3000 and height 2000. Alright, we can see how that's coming along. That's good. Put this one back in. And this is going to go straight into reflection and straight into reflective glossiness. And it's going to go in at 20%. So let's take this at 20%. And let's take this at 20%. And then we're going to come here, and I need this to be more reflective. I need it to show more of the environment. You know, it can't just have these highlight points. So we're going to turn this off, and let's put this up to 3. And you can see the stuff starting to come through here. Okay, now let's open this, and let's render this. Let's see what we get. Now this is interesting, because this is like a complete mess. Oh, we've got displacement off on this, haven't we? Alright, so let's turn displacement back on. But let's turn it off on these walls. I want to have a look at this as well. Like, let's open up the task manager. I've got two screens here. I'm trying to show you guys what I'm doing, so I keep dragging things off the other screen, but I work with two screens normally. Alright, so this is the task manager, and I'm interested here in the memory. I got 64 gig of memory in this machine, and I've turned off displacement on the wall, so it's only doing displacement on the floor. And if you look, if I isolate that Alt Q and press F3, like, it's not subdivided or anything. So I want to see how much memory this is going to use up. And we're only doing a 1500 render here, right? That's the resolution. Yeah, 1500 by 750. Click here, turn on displacement, and then render it out. So now it says compiling scene geometry, and this is the floor it's compiling right now. And if we look at this memory, yeah, we see this coming up. Alright, let's stop that. So this is like way too much on the displacement. So I'm just going to take the material editor here, and I'm going to double click on this guy. And you can use V-Ray Displacement Modifier. There's not a problem with that. I'm literally only doing tests. Normally I would. I just wanted to see how much memory it's using in comparison. Like here it went up to there, right? And if I put a V-Ray Displacement Modifier on this, and then I take this guy, if I say use scene material, 3D mapping, shift it up like 5 millimeters, and I'm saying use object material. And now if I render this out, it's not a big difference. I think it's slightly more memory here being used. And you can see this edge here. And we need to really push that up a bit. That's not really enough. So we've got it at 5. Let's set it at 10. And it's... You see it used more memory than when I didn't. When I didn't use V-Ray Displacement Modifier. Well, it's getting there. Let's set this to 20. Now this is not necessarily 20 mil, even though it says it, because I've said use the object material. So basically what it's doing is this object material is set low here. I've only set it to 5. So it's like a multiplication of 20 and this 5. So it's actually fairly low. What I can do is just take that out of there. I can't put it in here yet, but I can turn off use object material. And then if I plug this straight in here, and I've got 3D mapping on there. If I drop this down to like 10, let's see. And it's always a nice idea, you know, to pay attention, like I said, on this memory. Like, is this going to use a lot more memory? Is it going to use the same? I don't know. If I click on 2D mapping landscape, is it going to use the same? Is it going to use a different amount? I don't know. Sometimes you need to take this edge length and lower that down. If you start getting artifacts in here, then you need to lower that down so you don't get those artifacts. See, now it's just set to 10 and it looks too much. Bear in mind these tiles now are jumping up about, you know, a centimeter. So we can stop that. And we can see that come down. And let's just do a test. Let's see if I put this down to 2, drop that down to 5, press escape out of that, and render this. Okay, so it's using hardly any memory, but notice as well, we're not getting any displacement going on. And if I shove this up now, I've got 2D mapping landscape here. So if I put this up to 100, you know, what's it going to do? I don't really know what it's doing. It's doing something. It's not doing what I want it to do. And I could leave it to render out and figure it out, but I can't be bothered. Alright, let's go back to 3D mapping. And I think 5 is about right. Alright, that's good. I like that. Now I'll often use displacement on floors, tiled floors, so you can really see these ridges here. Otherwise they just kind of disappear. And I really kind of want to see them. I want to see that detail going on, because that's what you would see in a photo. So I don't see any reason to not have that. Now, in this image, we've got a nice sharp reflections. And here we don't have sharp reflections. So I'm going to take this off reflective glossiness. And I'm going to leave the reflective glossiness by default at 1. And now we should see this stop being blurry, and this should be nice and sharp. Alright, well that hasn't made it sharp how I expected, and that'll be something to do with something. If I take it out of reflection here, oh, I haven't got the reflection turned up. Let's make this white. Okay, let's put that in there. Alright, I never turned this up, that's the problem. So we're going to put that on there and have it set at 20%. That should be fine. Let's try it again. So the reason was it was simply not reflective. And this could be too reflective because I've got the, you know, this Fresnel unlocked and set to 3. So it could be too reflective. Looks pretty damn reflective to me. So I'm going to stop this. And let's drop this back. Let's try locking this. And that brings it back to 1.6. I'm going to drop this down to 2 actually. And I'm going to put in the waviness. So see, we've got this waviness in here. And the way we're going to do this is I'm simply going to take a noise map. So just go in general, noise, and for fun, I mean, there's various ways to do this. In this case, I'm just going to put it straight here into the displacement. And I'm going to basically just mix these two together in the end. And I'm going to take this noise amount and I'm going to lower this down to 0.4. And I'm going to push this, oh, sorry, not 0.4. Lower this down to 0.7 and raise this up to 0.3. So it looks something like this. And we're going to put a fractal in there and I'm going to bring this up to 7. And this could be too big or it could be too small, but we're just going to test it. So usually what I'll do on the floor is I'll subdivide it when I've got the displacement modifier in there. And you saw me do that on the walls. So I'm just going to, you know, on the wall tiles. So I'm just going to test this in a minute. Well, you can see the variation coming in here, but you can also see that it's too much. This is much less. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make the map larger. So we're going to go from 635 to like 2000. And I'm going to put a subdivide on under here just to see if what this does. Subdivide, and I like to set this at 150. That's just based on tests from a long time, from, I don't know, a year ago. And I'm going to press F9. And basically, it was a good number not to build the geometry too much. Look, see how much quicker it renders out when subdivide is turned on? Okay. I'm going to stop this. This now is too big, so we're going to come back in here again, and we're going to come down to 1000. And I think I'm going to go back to regular. As you can see, all of these, you know, edges, jagged edges. And even though they're not wrong, I think it's just too much. Stop. That's kind of better. Fractal. And if I set this to 3, what happens? If I set it to 2. So that's kind of better. Well, let's leave it there at 2. And let's see what we get with that. See, I'm much happier with the subdivide on there. So that's pretty good. And here it's messing up at the bottom, but that's fine. Alright, so now we need to just mix these together, and we're just going to use a mix map to do that. So let's just grab a mix map, just double click and drag that over. And I'm going to put this one into the top, and this new noise one into the bottom. And I'm just going to say mix it by 50%. And this goes all the way up to 100%. It's like the easiest way, you just do it, choose a percentage and play with it. You can also, you know, use a curve and so on and so forth, but this will work. So just make sure the displacement's selected and put that in there. And so now we've got 50% this and 50% this, and let's see how these go together. there's a chance we'll need to double this because it's only 50%. You know, it's only coming up 2.5. But it might be alright. You know, if you want the same effect on both, you're going to have to double it. So let's see if I bring this up to 10. I like this. Alright. So, even though I can kind of see what's happening here, we need to get a stained glass window in here. So, I think that's looking pretty nice. If we put back on, the displacement, and then render this out. Yeah, I think we're starting to get there. Now I actually want this light to have more power that's coming in. So again, if I go back to the material editor now, take this guy, I can push this up to 10. Let's see what we get. So I don't want to be coming up so high that it gets rid of all the blue in the scene, which it's starting to do. I just wanted to have a bit more light. So I'm going to reduce this back down, probably not to 5, but let's take it down to 7. I mean, the theory is if you take any light and you push it high enough, you're just going to blow everything out and it's going to become white. So you can have any color in any light, but as you go higher and higher and higher in the values, it's going to eventually just become white because it will go above what you can actually see. This is smoother. I'm not so happy with how bitty this is. Let me just have a look at this quickly. Okay, I'm going to adjust this displacement again. Yeah. See, because here it's going to go down and up, down and up, down and up, down and up. So we want to get rid of that. Something like that. I've done Shift Control Alt E to get it to duplicate it. I'm going to set that to multiply. And then let's try blurring this. Oh, crap. Looking at the max. Trying to figure out where filter is. Blur. Gaussian blur. Let's try 1. Let's try 2. Okay, let's try this for displacement. Yeah, that's it. Alright. Just render that. Yeah, that's better. Just less noisy. I'm going to actually make this, I want that to be narrower. So I'm going to bring this mapping closer together. So we're going to look at this. The width is 1000, or 850, let's try 850. 850 by 1600. Do the same here, 850. And let's render that. That's pretty close on the what's going on here. I'm going to decrease the bump here on these tiles. I'll probably leave this one as it is, but I'm going to decrease the bump on the tiles. And also I'm going to take this floor, we're just going to edit this floor slightly because this is a bit blurry. Here it's quite sharp, but this is a bit blurry. So I've got this set to perfect reflections, and it really isn't. So we're just going to drop it down to about 0.95, and we should be good to go on that. So this is the floor. Reflective glossiness is set there. We've got this concrete, right? So if I just put that into reflective glossiness, and I'm going to knock this down to 10. And I'm going to take this and knock this down to 0.95. Okay, great. So now I'm happy with that. Relatively, I've not tested it yet, but I think that'll be okay. I think that'll be better than it was. I don't like how perfect it is, how even it is. So I'm just going to adjust this. See, and we've got these little POC materials here, these little dents here. So those are like too dented, and it's too, somehow it's too perfect and polished, and we need to do something about that. So I'm just going to adjust this. So this noise is doing a good job. If you look here, see this waviness? That's from the noise. But this is not doing such a good job. What we're going to try doing is just taking this displacement, we're shifting it up. This should be -1, I don't know what I was thinking. Normally you go down 1, I've come up a millimeter. So I'm going to turn this off from 10 down to like 4 mil. Like, that's what I've got plugged into reflection and reflective glossiness. I guess you do see it a little bit there. Just take a look at this material. So I've only got it in 10% in the glossiness and 20% in the reflection. So I'm going to take this glossiness and put this up to 20. And I'm going to come up here. What have I got the IOR at? 2. Let's drop that down to 1.6. And we can also just lock it. Locking and 1.6 are the same. Look, if I put it at 3, see how it goes like that? If I lock it, it goes back down to 1.6. So by locking it, you're not locking it or whatever you've put in there, you're locking it back down to the default. I've got the region, we're going to do that. Basically, I've got this here at the same amount, 6000 by 3000, which is the same resolution this one was rendered at. And so we're just going to see what difference it makes with these changes that I've done. Okay, I like that. I like that more. What I don't like is the reflectiveness here in the grout. So if I look here, I've got this one here. I'm going to view this. See this, where it's black here, I can use this as a mask. So in the reflection, I can just do a composite. So I can come in here and I can open up Maps General, Composite. And I'm just going to put these together. So I'm going to put this into layer 1. And I'm going to add in an extra layer. And I'm going to call this Multiply. And I'm going to plug this into layer 2. That's the white and black one. And I'm going to plug this straight into reflection. So where it's black, it's not going to reflect. And then I can do something similar. I mean, that's also plugged into reflective glossiness. So I can just plug that into reflective glossiness. And I'm going to have no glossiness then in those areas as well. So we can see this reflection is what I'm trying to get rid of right now. So the problem here is that my reflection and reflective glossiness are not relying on the maps. So I put these all the way up. And then I really use the maps instead of using the settings in here. I'm going to have to just make this a little bit more complicated. If I work on glossiness first, so I'm going to take this and just do shift and drag. Plug this into glossiness. Let's plug just this map into glossiness to start with, actually. Oops. And then what I want is I want a color correction. Plug that in there. And we're going to try and get this back to being glossy with this color correction, so advanced. And I'm just going to use this gamma to put it up to 5. Okay, that's about right. So now plug this into layer 1 and plug this into reflective glossiness. And that's still looking nice. Okay. And we can try plugging this into reflection. Normally I use a different map in reflection. I won't use the same. So I was thinking I'd use this, but with a different color correction in it. But it seems to be working okay. So I'm just going to delete that. Okay. So now let's render this. And now I expect to see these disappear. And I expect this to change quite a bit. There we go. I got no glossiness now on the grout. I've got a lot of extra detail coming through here because of these maps. And I really like this extra detail. Yeah, I think I can live with this. I like this a lot. I still don't like these pock marks, but it's not the end of the world. So what I can do is this has got no bump on it. So let's put this into bump. And then just double click this guy and let's put the bump down to like 1. And this is at below 1, so we got to reduce this. Put this down to 0.1. You can see that changed. So there's a lot of, like, it's like, it's picking up a lot of JPEG artifacts and so on. What's the blur on these actually? Okay, that is too high. Let's try this down at 0.1. And then let's take this out of bump while we just test this. Okay, F9. You know, for displacement, I don't normally reduce that blur very much, but we're just going to see what it does. Well, we're still getting them, but I do think that's better. It's a sharper edge. Looks more realistic. These look better somehow, these pockmarks. Okay, let's stop that. This whole thing is just coming together a lot better. And if I put this into the bump now, and I only set it at 1, right? So again, it's just going to make a slight change. But look, if I just take the top half here and just render this. So you see that's got a lot of extra little detail, micro detail going on in there. And again, I think that adds to it. That helps the render. Okay, good. Alright, I like that. I like those changes on the floor. I like the changes that's done to these. Alright, and there we go. Well, let's render away.